What do baseball, Ferris wheels, Dr. Pepper, and kindergarten all have in common? Each gained popularity in the late 1800s as part of cultural trends occurring in the United States during that time. This lesson will look at these and other cultural and social changes that took the country in new directions by the turn of the century.
The leisure time of this era was brought about by massive changes in the way Americans worked. Technological advancements meant that the types of jobs that were held by the masses were drastically different than the farming days of years past. Cities were a centerpiece of these new waves of change, though they were not without their woes. In addition to a middle class that was emerging, conditions of poverty in the cities were often extreme. Imagine, for instance, living in a tiny apartment that was possibly unsafe and unclean, with no windows at all, crowded in with others who have migrated to the city in search of work. The cultural and social changes occurring would affect multiple people from a variety of backgrounds.
You probably hear a lot about how much the internet has changed how fast information is shared. In the 1800s, a major development for the spread of information was cheaper and faster ways of printing. Books and documents could be efficiently produced compared to older methods. Newspapers also became more widely produced and read. Just like today's websites may create sensationalist titles for their articles to get you to click on them, newspapers sometimes competed with one another through headlines and details that dramatized the truth. Rival New York newspaper owners William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer are known for having promoted this tendency called yellow journalism. However, more honest journalistic news highlighted conditions like the ones faced by immigrants living in city ghettos, which led to an increased awareness of such issues. Literacy, or the ability to read and write, was on the rise during this time as well, making it possible for more people to consume the information that was being spread widely and quickly. Kindergartens, where children could start school at an earlier age, came into the picture by the end of the century too. In addition, middle-class white women were going to school in greater numbers and were allowed access to more colleges than ever. Many historically African-American colleges were established during this post-Civil War period as well, as were other schools emerging to meet the demand for higher education overall. Just about everyone likes to have time to play as a break from work, to blow off steam, or to experience new things. Those living in the late 19th century also had these desires. During this period of time, many people were able to explore the new territory of leisure activities like amusement parks. The popularity of Coney Island in Brooklyn, New York is a great example of this, with its rides, games, and entertainment. In addition, cultural and educational gatherings, known as chautauquas, were also important in communities across the country. Those in attendance could experience a wide variety of activities, from lectures to dance concerts. Vaudeville would also become so popular that it lasted well into the 20th century, with its acts ranging from singers to comedians to circus-style performers. Baseball became the national pastime during this era too, though it would become and remain racially segregated until later in American history. Other sporting events gained traction as well, with spectators enjoying both the competition and the opportunity to experience the new social spaces created by such events. Even shopping for goods beyond basic necessities grew as a leisure activity. Department stores and other retail establishments gave consumerism an environment in which to flourish. Products from clothing lines to Dr. Pepper were pursued with greater enthusiasm, a trend which was bolstered even further by extensive advertising. For immigrants, people of color, women, and those of less financial means, this era included an uneven combination of new and old ways of thinking. For instance, some Coney Island beaches were viewed as appropriate only for the rich, while others allowed for greater mixing of different classes than in most other social spaces. African Americans were routinely disenfranchised from access to political and economic power, yet greater educational opportunities began to emerge during this time. Women still didn't have the vote, but meanwhile, the female journalist known as Nellie Bly broke barriers with her reporting approach and commitment to addressing injustices. In many ways, unfortunately, the late 19th century continued some old habits at the same time as new trends emerged. However, these cultural and social developments would lead to even greater changes in the 20th century. Due to changes in the economic structure of American life in the 1800s, cultural and social changes followed suit. Among the education trends that emerged in the later part of the century, Higher education and early education were in greater demand, and literacy was on the rise. Better methods of printing led to the wide dissemination of information, including journalism of varying quality. Leisure time and consumerism became more central in the lives of the middle class, while ethnicity, gender, and class continued to impact the experience of many Americans.